Hey, welcome to another very exciting episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Glad to be back. Happy Thursday, December 12th, almost Friday the 13th. It's coming up. So hopefully everyone gets some good picks coming up on this upcoming weekend of football. We got Thursday night football coming up. Pretty good game, actually. 49ers and the Rams playing for playoff position. But I have a great guest, returning guest. It might be our fourth, fifth time on the show, something like that. She's a regular now, so she's not even a guest. Podcast family back to the show. Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, Wizard Talk owner, and also the Kelly and Murray Show podcast. She does a little bit of Splash Sports, commish, Outkick contributor, all things, sports betting analyst, all those things. So Kelly, welcome to the show. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Courtney, glad to be back. I'm glad we could find some time to get together. It's always tough during football season.
Yeah, it is totally. And we talked over the summer a little bit before, and then we were trying to do a show, I think, in October. That didn't work out because you said it's football season, it's too busy and everything too. So, but again, I'm glad to get you back on, and thanks again for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Let's get into some of these games. This
Yeah,
week's kind of boring. I kind of feel bad because there's not a lot of college on the slate, but
yeah.
I actually like a lot of NFL this weekend.
Okay, all right. Well, let's start there. Let's start with the NFL. But before we get into the NFL, talk a little bit about what you've been doing over the last, just say, few weeks with college football, NFL. Talk about your process. I always enjoy. I know you said it before, basically on the first episode, but talk a little about how when you start when the games are getting ready to, after I guess Monday, the games. Do you start right away with your picks and trying to get things like that? How's how the research go first and foremost?
Yeah, so it's going to start changing, actually. It's interesting that you asked that because I think the last 3 or 4 weeks of the NFL season, the way you handicap bowls, it's all a little bit different. But throughout the regular season, usually Sunday morning, while I'm waiting for NFL to start, cooking breakfast, I start working on college football, kind of recapping what I saw from the day before, kind of checking out those early line moves. And the same thing goes on Monday for the NFL. Like I kind of let the dust settle. This NFL season has just been absolutely brutal. It started off red
Yeah.
hot, has been flat for like 12 weeks, had a good week last week. I'm in a contest at the Las Vegas Review Journal, and he texts me, he goes, "Congrats on a 12-3 run." I'm like, yeah, maybe I can have another 12-3 run to end the season and end up above 500 because there were like weeks there where it was like 0-3, 0-4,
Mm,
1-3, like just brutal weeks.
yeah.
And, a lot of favorites kept cashing. But how we look at the weeks like 15, 16, 17, and now with the addition of week 18 is a little bit different, especially in the league. You want to be kind of looking at who's motivated to play and which talking heads on your prospective TV stations are saying that other teams aren't motivated. There are must-win games, but teams still want to play spoiler, especially when it becomes a division rival, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get your most from your guys that are looking for contracts. You're going to get the most from your guys looking to hit their incentives and their bonuses. So this whole adage of, oh, this team doesn't care. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they want to come back and play for that coach the next season. Maybe they don't want their coach to get fired. So there are motivating factors that we start to look in later on. As far as bowl season goes, it was really tough last year, right? I said, you know what? I'm not betting anything early because the year prior, there was so much chaos between the transfer portal, between coaches leaving for new jobs and not playing the bowl games. It just was so chaotic that I was like, this is too stressful and it's not worth me risking my bankroll. I'd rather have the best of the information than the best of the number. And you don't hear me say that very often. But now with the college football playoff, I feel like there are at least 12 teams that we have a really good idea about, right? And
Yeah.
now we're seeing the transfer portal. We know who's leaving early. We know who's going to be coming in. We know which coaches are leaving. So you can either just opt out of those games like the players and coaches do, or you can kind of wait until closer to game time and figure out, all right, here's who's going to be under center. Here's which wide receivers are staying. Here's the coach that's going to be the interim coach for these games. And again, getting the best of that information means more to me, at least in this part of the season, than it does the rest of the year.
No doubt. Yeah. And I know just, knowing you for the last few years, actually, I know we met in person at Super Bowl last year. But knowing you and following you, and how hard you work and put in the work. I mean, because you said you start with a lot of, you start right from the beginning. Like when the NFL's right before the NFL starts, you start getting the line, you start getting all these things and everything too. So you put in that work. So, and then as you said, as the season progresses, this NFL season has been very brutal. I'm in this one league where you got to pick winners. And doing a better record you have each week, you win money. But overall, see the overall record at the end of the year, you win the bigger prize. So I've been having like some good weeks, some bad weeks. I'll have, like you said, 12-3. I'll go do something like that, or I'll just have something like an 8-7 record, which would just drop me. I think I'm in the top 10, so the top person wins some money. So it's you're right. It's been a brutal NFL season.
I just needed some dogs to win outright, Courtney. Just every once in a while.
Mhm.
Last week I did have the Chargers +4, couldn't get them to win outright.
Yeah.
It's just been really tough. A team that I'm betting on this week, had they just won a couple of games outright that they covered, I would be sitting a little bit pretty. I did have the Pats over 5 wins in my
Mm,
regular season win total. They should already be sitting at 5.
at least.
It's frustrating, right? But like
Yeah.
those are the types of teams I want to still back, right? They like their head coach, they like Drake May, that defense is still solid. They're playing right now and they're having a good time because there's no pressure on them versus their opponent, who's the Arizona Cardinals,
Mhm.
was sitting in first place in the NFC West. And then they have a bye week and now the wheels have fallen off. It's
Right.
kind of funny to sit back and say, hey, how much more does this game mean to the Cardinals? Just because it means more doesn't mean they're going to win the game, let alone
Yeah.
cover.
Right, and they'll let alone cover, exactly, and I think that's the part of it, like, to win the game, but let alone cover, so that's always a headache when you're following. So let's get into the NFL this week 15. All the buys are over with, so you have a full slate of games, 2 Monday night games. What are a couple games that you're looking at either outright, or are you looking at some of the favorites? What are some of the games you're looking for in this week?
So I mentioned New England. I'm not sure they can actually win this game outright, but man, you'd got to think that this is kind of one of those plays where Arizona has the most to lose. Maybe look for New England on the money line. Another
Yeah.
game that I'm looking for on the money line is betting against my own Denver Broncos. Listen,
Mm,
this Colts team, I had them projected to win the AFC South. And now they're just kind of sitting on the outside looking in. They only have a 27% chance to make the playoffs. So you got to kind of look at this here and say, all right, who are they playing and how good are they? The Broncos, I did not like the Bo Nix draft pick. I did not necessarily think that the Broncos were going to be playoff bound, right?
yeah.
Potentially this season with a rookie quarterback with a head coach who, sold off Russell Wilson for pennies that they've overpaid, right? Like Denver was not supposed to be this great team. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying they are, but at home as a favorite, they've done really, really well. So I have to kind of wonder here, Denver coming off the bye week, you've got to see who's on deck. And that is their arch rival, the Chargers.
Mhm.
Last 14 times before they played the Chargers, the Broncos have covered 2 games. So I like the Colts. I took the +4. I think +3.5 is worth a look still. If it dips down to 3, you are too late. And then the other game that I played outside of tonight's game, which we can talk about as well, if you will have the pot up in time, is Jacksonville. And I know this is the most garbage game. I'm so sorry to your listeners. Like nobody wants to hear me talk about Jacksonville beating the New York Jets.
Both
But
3 and 10.
yeah, right. Both
Yeah,
3 and 10.
yeah,
Neither team is making the playoffs, right? Like it's just not happening. But New York has been awful, especially as a favorite. They burned their backers' money more in the last 2 seasons than any other team. It has been so poor. This team
yes.
cannot get out of their own way. They have since fired, well, their head coach and their GM. They have a wide receiver who, well, I don't know. I can't explain it, but let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. I mentioned teams and players aren't going to quit. You can kind of see the defeat on Aaron Rodgers and how his frustration is, and it's almost like a quit. Now, last weekend they didn't show that. They were playing a division rival in the Dolphins. So they go from New Jersey to Miami to New Jersey to Jacksonville. This team does not care about playing this game. And you're asking them to go on the road as a favorite in December.
Yeah.
Come on. Now,
Yeah.
I think the end of the day, Jags get the win at home. I did take the 3.5. I understand some sharp people want to bet the Jets, but these guys have been betting the Jets for weeks. And
Right.
guess what? The Jets do not cover football games.
The Jets are jetsing. That's what it seemed like. They're being the Jets. And there was an article that just came out saying they actually might be cursed. They said so. It's
Maybe.
about 3-10, and again, the season that they've had, I don't think any of us predicted that. Like, they were Super Bowl contenders. They were actually playoff contenders at the very least. And as you said, last week they did try to play hard because they still had an outside chance to maybe sniff the playoffs, get that bottom. But now they're officially eliminated. I didn't think they had a chance when they were 3-9. So it just did. You said they fired a coach, fired a GM. They have an interim coach now. It's like just not working with all that talent. It just hasn't worked for them. So I'm with you. I think that the Jags could pull it off, but this could be one of those games that the Jets actually could win, and they'll probably end up winning this game. It's just when there's nothing to play for now.
Nothing to play for. I'll say this, Courtney. If I told you that Mac Jones was 5-0 against the Jets in his career,
right.
what would you say?
Oh my goodness, right? You're like, wait, Mac Jones, yeah, when he played for the Patriots, like he beats the Jets all the time. So
right?
I wouldn't be surprised either.
That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point.
I understand it's with a different team, but two of those Patriots teams were not very good. There's a reason why he's now a Jag. And hey, let's be honest. You think Mac Jones wouldn't like to be playing being a starting quarterback on another NFL team one day? I think he would. And I think if he showcased himself over the next couple of games because of this Trevor Lawrence injury, he might just get himself.
Yeah, for sure. And then like you said, he got an opportunity and to play, and now he might be playing for maybe a starting position next year for someone there's going to be some teams that are going to need quarterbacks next season. So a quarterback hungry team will actually maybe pick him up if he plays well down the stretch. We'll see if that happens. So there's two more games I want to ask you about. First, I want to ask you about my Philadelphia Eagles, who have won 9 straight, but all this drama is coming up now. It's like you would think with them winning 9 straight, a game behind the Detroit Lions, and now it's like AJ Brown's going to probably have a huge game. So if anybody got fantasy lines with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, I say play both of them this week. But what do you think of that game with the Steelers and the Eagles?
That's funny. I barely looked at this game, and that's because I didn't really think that there was a lot of value. I made the Eagles 6. So with Pittsburgh 5.5, I thought, I have no real reason to get involved here. But here's I was just bagging on Russell Wilson there. I mean, look, maybe Mike Tomlin deserves just a tiny bit more credit than anybody ever wants to give to him. Pittsburgh's covered 7 of their last 8 games. That is huge. I mean, I know Philly's been on a nice winning game streak, but there's been a couple of moments there where they could have faltered. Look, I think right now, you guys run the ball with Barkley, punch him in the mouth.
Yes.
You guys can win this game. But boy, would I not be surprised to see the Steelers defense be able to shut him down. And guess what? They force turnovers. So Jalen Hurts has got to play like clean football.
Yeah.
I do think also, Philadelphia's got a talented defense, and I don't want to take away from them there. So you could exploit Russell Wilson. Absolutely. But man, Pittsburgh is an underdog. It's almost too hard to pass up. And I know a lot of people like the Steelers, but man, I'm always wrong about your Philadelphia Eagles. Every single time I bet against them, I am wrong.
I mean, it's tough because you just don't know what Eagles team is going to show up, and they win with defense, they win with the running game. They haven't had to win with the passing game yet, but now with AJ Brown talking about the passing, we need to be a better pass. I think they definitely do need more balance, but they're winning and they're running the football.
Why on earth would you pass the ball when you have Saquon Barkley?
Exactly.
I get AJ Brown for himself, for his incentives and his contract. He wants to see the ball more. But also, don't you want to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Don't you want to get back there and you have the talent to do it? You're winning. and Saquon Barkley could be breaking the Eric Dickerson's record coming up. So I'm with you. I totally agree. I think they just need to continue what's been working. Yes, there's going to come a time and place where Jalen's going to have to win a game or two on it with his arm, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. He can do it. So it's not like he can't. It's just the fact that he's relying on the run game, and he is playing clean football since the bye week, and they're winning. He's only turned the ball over 2 times in the last 9 games. So, and I think that's what he has been kind of gun shy of pulling the trigger on that. But there's been opportunities for him to do it. I think this might be the time that he might have to. I agree. I think Steelers are going to key in on Saquon. They're going to try to force Jalen to beat them over the top. And the last time this happened, AJ Brown called that out, and he had 3 touchdowns. So the over under of that 3 touchdowns could get that. He could get that. All right, I do want to talk about that the Thursday night game, but I want to talk about this Bills and Lions game too. This might be the game of the week. The Bills 10-3 coming off that Josh Allen tremendous, like crazy game, losing last week to the Rams. The Lions are hot as well. They're 12-1. What do you think of this game? Who do you got winning the Bills and Lions?
I'm just really sick of betting against Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
like I did get talked into it by our neighbors that were over here. They're Bears fans. They said, listen, Kelly, this is the spot to back the Bears. And they did. Bears played them tight, right? They really did. So then I followed it up with Packers last Thursday night. I didn't get the 3.5. I got the 3. And of course, Dan Campbell wheelbarrows out there like the South Park meme and just drops it. Like, you're like, man, really? Like, that was so ballsy. What was the need? You almost cost yourself the game, but then subsequently ends up winning the game. And when you have a coach like that the guys get up for, they love Dan Campbell. It's hard as a gambler. It's like, you're not supposed to do that, right? Like I always say this, like, so let's use Jameis Winston, for example, against the Denver Broncos. I was on Denver that night, but I knew I was on the wrong side in the first half of that game. And then Jameis threw 4 interceptions, right? Like, you cannot handicap for Kirk Cousins or Jameis Winston to throw 4 interceptions. Those things go your way and they go against your way. I cannot quantify Dan Campbell going out there and doing what he does best. Look, this is, I think, going to be a great game. It is obviously the Super Bowl that most people want, not Eagles fans, obviously, but like true football fans want to see 2 like historically, unfavorable fan bases based on, the Super Bowl itself be able to get in there. And I think, look, you have a really good Detroit defense here. And you mentioned how good Josh Allen looked even in that loss in LA. I mean, the guy had 350 yards. He's only thrown 5 interceptions on the season. He's cleaned up all the turnovers. I want to root for Josh Allen. I just don't know if I can root for him against Dan Campbell. I'm going to say this. If I would have gotten the 2.5 early in the week, maybe I could have got to the window with the Bills. And, you talked about contests. I love to exploit stale lines in the contest because you can get a leg up on people because they want to bet teams. I'm looking to bet numbers. Maybe I'll take the Bills in a few contest plays, but at 1.5, now going down to 1. I just don't know if I could bet against Dan Campbell at home because every time I do, it does not seem to work out well in my favor.
And that line might actually move to a 0.5 point as well. You just don't know. I mean, I know, it's, get the 1.5 and now it could be 1. It's like, that's one of those lines. But again, 2 of the best teams, could be a Super Bowl preview. I don't think it's getting talked about enough, maybe because the Bills are coming off that loss, maybe possibility. And, as you said, Josh Allen, I don't know if you play fantasy football, but Josh Allen. Okay, so I figured you did. So Josh Allen had one of the highest, if not the highest, point total ever by a quarterback in the history of fantasy football. I think they said it's been 20-something years since Michael Vick, when he ended up having like 50-something. I just read that when he had 50 points. I had Michael Vick that year, I believe, and he had 6 touchdowns. I think he had 5 passing, 1 rushing. I think at that time it was the Washington Redskins, but it was against them on Monday Night Football. I mean, first play of the game was like a 90-yard touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson. So, and then
I remember that game.
Remember that? Yes. So that was a tremendous. But it's been a lot of great performances by Jamar Chase has had quite a couple, two big ones, and just like he just had one on Monday night. So it's been I mean, even though the season has, as you said earlier, the season's just been up and down. It's been a great for fantasy purposes. There's been a lot of good, huge performances by. I mean, Saquon had one large, couple large games himself too. So for
Yeah, it's
that,
crazy.
it's been
You know,
helpful.
also, I was just looking after you brought up, you know who else had a monster game last week? Sam Darnold. He had
Yeah.
52
Hmm.
fantasy points. Like, that's
Yeah.
just nuts.
5
Like,
touchdown passes, I believe. Yeah.
yeah, so like you wouldn't think, right? You'd be like, well, I'm not going to do that. I will say this, not the guy we played against, but one of the guys had Allen on his bench.
Ooh,
Oh
jeez.
no.
Supposed to start your
64
stud.
point 65.4 points. So not
Oh,
only was Josh Allen, but Sam Darnold.
oh,
That's tough. What are you gonna do?
that's yeah. What are you gonna do? You're right. All right. One more on the NFL. Then I want to ask you your opinion about this. The college football, all the bowl games and the playoffs coming up. The Rams and 49ers. Talk a little brief about that. Who do you have covered? It's the 49ers. I think I know the line was 2.5. Is it 2 right now, or has that
No,
line moved since
there's a lot of 3 flats,
3?
Courtney,
Okay.
and 3 plus 120 or it's 3 minus 120, excuse me, for the Rams. Depends where you like to shop, but there is a couple still 2.5s out there. Here's the reality, and I wasn't going to play this game. The Niners have just been really lackluster for a couple weeks now,
And
right?
all
Like
those injuries too.
it
Oof.
yes, the injuries, all of the drama, it's just been a lot going on. And
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? Like, I'm not going to get involved. Last week, I know a lot of sharp people who liked the Bears. And luckily, I missed the number. Thank goodness, because boy, oh boy,
Yeah.
did San Francisco just coast to a win. So
Yeah.
when we're looking at teams on a short week, I'm going, all right, you have San Francisco who just beat up on the Bills. And then you've got the Rams who just were in an absolute dogfight with the Bills there late in that fourth quarter. That takes a lot out of you. 44-42 type game, that takes a lot out of your offense and your defense, right? Like it's not like it was 17-16 final where just the defense was gassed. I mean, that entire team is gassed. You have a Niners team who was in the Super Bowl last year. And we always talk about the Super Bowl loser and what happens to them. And whether it was injuries or other weird things happening, I'll say this. I think this Niners team has kind of gotten through that muck, if you will, of the season.
Mm.
And I will also agree that Brock Purdy gets a lot of grief, right? He gets a lot of like disdain. A lot of people don't really like him. My guy does well, especially on Thursday nights. He's never lost on Thursday night football. Small sample size, 6-0, but something to keep in mind there. I know a lot of people like the Rams because what they saw from the Rams last week. I know a lot of people are expecting the Rams to be the playoff Cinderella, if you will. I'm
Yeah.
just not sure I'm there with that team.
Yeah. And they've dealt with some injuries too. And I think, and I agree with you. I think with the 49ers, with so many injuries, and then they're down to like their fifth string running back, I believe. So it's like but anytime you put somebody in that Shanahan offense, they shine. So somehow, some way, Brock Purdy and them will probably get it together. And you're right. If the 49ers, if they can win this week, they'll be 7-7. And if they can just get going right now and they make the playoffs, I don't think a lot of teams will want to play a tough 49ers team who knows how to get to a Super Bowl. And, Shanahan just being able to lead that team. As long as Brock Purdy stays healthy and he has enough weapons around him and offensive line can block, 49ers got a really good shot. So I think you're right. I think a lot of people are gonna jump on the Rams because of the performance they did put up last week. But they're playing at San Francisco, so that's gonna be tough. But I like the Niners to win a real close one in this one. So, all right, let's move to some college football. I know you got a new splash contest. Before we get into that, how did you do on your Survivor? I know the last time we talked about Survivor, your splash contest and Survivor. I still can't play because I'm in Pennsylvania, so they still haven't gave it have let me do that yet. Let us do that in Pennsylvanians, but how did you do in Survivor? I was out like we think week 3 or week 4. I done forgot now. So it was over.
So NFL Survivor, I still have one
Yeah.
left. I actually was just looking because I couldn't remember. I like to put in my pick on Monday and then kind of decide throughout how the week goes. And I was like, who did I put in? I have Minnesota this week in Survivor. Normally, I don't like to do divisional teams, but as I mentioned, Arizona was my other option. And I was like, watch me use Arizona, and then New England wins outright. So I was like, let me back up. I do lean towards Minnesota getting the cover this week, betting against those lowly Bears once again. But that is the only Survivor I have left. I went out before Super Bowl with the Saints losing at the Panthers. That was rough, and I will make sure that rule gets reenacted for me and my buddy Chris next year, because that was something we had spoke about before, is that, hey, we want nothing to do with divisional road favorites. As far as Splash goes, when the double pick week started happening, that's when I went out in the Splash NFL contest. But the Splash College contest, there was a huge divide. I think 117 of us ended up tying. So next year, I have some full-on plans of doing more double pick weeks, maybe even a 3-pick week, just to make it a little bit harder. Doing a college Survivor wasn't anything I'd ever seen anybody do before. And I think I just made it too easy.
Right. And I know you talked about this on the Kelly and Murray podcast. By the way, everyone, subscribe and listen to that. It's entertaining. You always giving John Murray a handful and everything too. But I love the banter of you too. Great chemistry and everything too. But I love the show. But so you said that you would make some changes with this, because it was the first time you said doing a college Splash Survivor pool kind of thing. So what changes would you make with that, and talk a little bit about the new contest with the playoffs?
Yeah, so we have 2 contests up right now, one for $50, and that is just a college football bowl pick'em, right? So it starts Saturday, so the 14th, and it goes all the way through the playoffs, and person with the most points is going to win. So I like that because that's just very traditional. $50, it's a lower barrier to entry, and it's $25,000 guaranteed. I don't know why Splash keeps trusting me with these guarantees, but they do.
They do.
The other one is a lot trickier. It is the college football playoff. So you have 12 teams, and you basically have to get your bracket perfect. But it is $50,000 guaranteed. It is a $100 buy-in. So I'm already kind of like back and forth on the first round of the playoffs. Like, do I think that Clemson can actually beat Texas? No, not really, but I have 5 entries. So like one of those entries, I'm going to have to get, a little bit spicy. I'm going to have to figure out how this is actually going to map out. It's definitely a lot tougher. And that's kind of why we did that, is because of this year in the college contests, I didn't make it hard enough, right? And also, we didn't really see that many upsets. I mean, you can tell by my underdog parlay, there were just not as many upsets as we have seen in years past. And, even the week with the Notre Dame NIU, Notre Dame wasn't available that week because I said I only wanted to use the Power 4 contest or conferences, because what I didn't want people to do was week 11 be able to use Alabama over like a Mercer or a Citadel. So I didn't realize that it would also wipe out some of those early, craziness where, Boston College might lose to a Buffalo or things like that. So for next year, definitely going to go through the schedule with more of a fine-tooth comb and kind of really figure out, all right, where are some landmines that people may pick? And then make those like double pick weeks. So fine, you can have your Alabama versus Mercer, but there's going to be some other ones in that mix that I think, because that double pick is so much harder, 3 picks, which is even more stressful. But the college slate's a lot bigger, so it gives you a lot more opportunity to just pick the winner.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember you announcing that. I think the last time we talked, you were saying you were going to do a college football, like Survivor pool or Survivor picks, things like that, and pick 'em type of challenge. And it was good to, as you said, you learn, and then you say, okay, now I know what to do, because you said there's so many games, so many teams each and every week playing against each other, and it's hard to kind of to navigate that. But as you said, now you're like, okay, now I know what to do. But hey, people still can win money regardless. They're gonna get into the contest.
$303 for a $50 buy-in.
Right. So hey, that's what it's about, winning the money too. And as you said, now with this 12-team playoffs, now that is set, were there any surprises? And do you think the committee got it right? And also, who do you think is going to win the whole thing? This is going to be tough. Is it going to be Oregon? They look like the favorites to win it.
Yeah, but they also have a really tough slate. And
They
also we have
do.
to talk about, do we actually think, and that's the reality, do we actually think that Oregon's the number one team? No. And we've been saying that for weeks, that we don't think that they're a true number one team. Now they have a tougher schedule. I think it's going to
Yes.
be really interesting to see how this plays out. I'm going to pull up the bracket really quick.
Yeah.
But I do think they got it right. Like, no offense to Alabama. They
Yeah.
should
Three
have been up.
losses. Yeah. They
Yeah,
had three
you had 3
losses.
losses. You can bitch and complain. You can say, "Hey, I don't like that, you know, SMU got in or Indiana got in because their strength of schedule." Well, then don't lose to Vanderbilt.
Right.
Don't,
Yeah.
like, those are pretty simple things. So I think that being able to look at this year and say, all right, here's what we've got. We've got some interesting seeding from a perspective for the first round. Everybody's at least, a touchdown underdog outside of, early on. And who's going to pull the upset, right?
Yeah.
I think Penn State has a really easy path. That's just between you and I. And I think that when we see that, right, how they're going to go through the whole ranks, they could have a really easy way. As I mentioned, Oregon has a really tough way. So I did 5 different pools on Splash, as I mentioned. So I'm pulling that up right now.
Yeah.
One of them, I did pick Clemson to upset. That is in one of them. Just because I was like, all right, can this be a thing? All right, maybe. It's tough to win in Austin, but I will be really kicking myself if I screw up and don't. So then I
Yes.
kind of started to look in a couple of other spots, and I said, all right, here's what we know, right? You have a probability. Ohio State is a significantly better team than Tennessee on a neutral field. Now you're going to give them 2.5 points, 3 points for being at home.
Yeah.
They only allotted 3,500 tickets for the Vols. It is going to be rocking. And oh, by the way, Ohio State off that really terrible loss. So the first round looks like everybody's just going to pick all the chalk. That's what I don't want to do. I want to zig when others zag. So because I have 5 entries, I got to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And probably I'll have a dog in each one of those. Maybe we'll see. I do like Indiana. I think Kirk Cignetti is an excellent coach. I don't think Notre Dame has really, well, everybody's going to say this about Indiana. They haven't played anybody. Neither has Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the argument there to me is kind of a moot point. But I think overall, in 3 out of my 5, I'm going to have Ohio State winning the whole thing. I'm going to have 1 Georgia. And I think I better have 1 Texas just in case.
Just in case. Right. Right. No, I like that. And in Penn State, SMU they could beat them.
SMU's got the horses, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw them last week. You cannot take your foot off the gas versus SMU.
No, not for sure. And Penn State, they just have a history of big games.
Yes.
They don't deliver. And I can see SMU beating Penn State. And I'm with you. Clemson they can upset Texas. I would not be surprised if they beat Texas. From the just off from the first round. I can see Ohio State beating Tennessee. And you said Indiana Notre Dame. I think that could be a toss up as well. But the winner playing Georgia, Georgia seems like they're on this right now. Just seem like they feel like they could win the whole thing again. And
yeah, I just don't think. I mean, listen, if it's Carson Beck, which we know he was pretty banged up a couple of weeks ago. So last week, I guess I should say. Look, I'll say Stockton. I think he is a better quarterback than Beck. So there is something to look at there. Have we heard anything definitive about Carson Beck's injury? I hadn't really checked.
I haven't really looked either. No, haven't heard anything. And they still got a couple weeks before.
Yeah, timeline. Yeah. There's nothing really saying like, hey, it's just his throwing arm is hurt.
Right.
There's no timeline. He had an MRI on December 9th. That's the last.
Right. That's the last I've seen too. Yeah, they don't play till the 1st. So January 1st. So they still got about 3 weeks. So let's see if he plays. But yeah, it looks like some of the favorites you said is like could be chalk, but it just depends what happens in the first round. I think really like what team prevails out of the first round, and then the matchups, because say Ohio State could beat Oregon. It's a huge possibility, and I'm not going to sleep on Dabo Sweeney and Clemson either. So it's like they can get on a run and and win 3 games, and then next thing you know, be like, oh wait, they're the national champion. No surprise, it's Dabo Sweeney and Clemson. They don't have to. They don't have to. Their team's not as strong as they used to be, but like previous years. But I mean, anything like said, it's a madness of playoffs, even though it's not March Madness, but it's a madness of this college football season. So, um, yeah, but I could talk to you forever with this. I know we gotta cut this short pretty soon. But there was a question in the chat that I wanted to ask. It was from Nathan Ramachandra. He said, "What's your favorite moment in your career so far?"
Oh man, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't really given that a lot of thought. My favorite moment in my career. Oh, I actually don't know. I mean, I feel like I've got to meet a lot of really cool people. I don't get like star-studded. Meeting John Elway was pretty awesome, and
Okay.
talking football with him. But could that have maybe happened if I wasn't in my career? Maybe he was just at the Aria High Limit Room and
Yeah.
some other people. Going to Charles Barkley's New Year's Eve party was pretty fun. Getting an invite to that was pretty cool.
I'm sure that
Uh,
was fun.
yeah, when we all worked together at Turner. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like there was like one particular moment. I mean, I honestly think my favorite moment should be the moment I hit that 85-1 parlay was because it changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Yeah,
But
right,
then hitting
right.
those two back to back when I worked at Barstool was pretty epic. So
Yeah.
I would have to say there's like I don't know if I can pick one, but if I have to pick one, I'll pick hitting back to back underdog parlays in 2021 was pretty fun.
Yeah, that had yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that's like you probably could do a top 5, and that would definitely be up there. So, all right, last one. What is next for Kelly in Vegas, for 2025? Anything you could share? And are you going to Super Bowl again, in New Orleans the next for in 2025?
That's a good question about Super Bowl because I'm still undecided. I think it depends on who's in the Super Bowl. Last year,
Okay.
Vegas was just so natural to me.
Yes. Yeah.
It was so easy. And, I had accommodations because I do stuff with the Westgate Superbook, and they take good care of me. It's expensive to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, we're
Yes, it is.
talking hotel rooms, tickets, things like that. It can kind of get out of control, and the networking is amazing, but it is a crazy week. Like, I mean, everybody I know last year left Super Bowl sick, and I'm like, that's because you guys went out until 7 o'clock in the morning at excess. That's why I went
Mm,
to bed,
yeah,
because I lived there. So I knew everything that they were out doing. And it's exciting
right.
when you don't. But for me, it was like, it's not really worth it. But for 2025, I mean, listen, I'm just building wager talk. I just got off a 2 hour long meeting right before we did this and how we're going to start revamping some of our videos and what we're going to start doing differently. And, try to keep up with the kids. These
Yeah.
kids, Courtney,
The
man,
youngins, yeah.
it's hard. You've got to
Yeah,
evolve. You've got to adapt or die. And so next year is going to be a big evolutionary year for me. Figure out what my next steps in my career are, how to build a monster business, and be able to go from there.
no doubt. And I can I can definitely say, like I said, just seeing your career over the years and following you, I could see, just always adapting, always making changes and things like that. And like you said, they say it's a young kids, this industry, media, and sports analysts and gambling and things like that. But we can still adjust and adapt with them too. So that's what it's about, and keeping our heads above water, and he said building a business, a brand, and things like that. So, but Kelly, it's always good catching up with you. I really enjoy this. Like I said, I could have talked to you for hours. I always tell you that every time, but I definitely could have. We could have just kept going and going and going. But I know you got some other things you got to do, videos and things like that. Me too, and all that too. So again, thank you for your time. Happy holidays as well. But let everyone know where they can follow you on all the socials. Are you on Blue Sky or
So
or
it's funny because they told us to get on Blue Sky and they said,
yeah?
get your username. And so I did, and I haven't done anything else whatsoever. But that's what I did with TikTok too, right?
Yeah.
I got a TikTok when it first came out because you gotta secure your username, and then
Yep.
I did nothing for it for 3 years. So I'm on there, but I don't post because I feel like
Right.
it's like repetitive to do the same thing you're doing on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll see. But yes, Kelly in Vegas on all your social channels. You can check out the Wager Talk YouTube channel. That is where I post all of my videos and content, whether you want to learn how to handicap games, whether you want us to break down a specific game, you can search for it all. We have everything you could probably ever want. College basketball season's coming up. Excited to do some new stuff. And hopefully I'm launching a new show on the channel here soon. I can't say who with, but we have some things in the works.
Okay, maybe it'll be with me. Never know. But yes, Kelly. Yeah, follow Kelly in Vegas. Like I said, on all socials. I haven't did Blue Sky yet, but I gotta. I guess I'm gonna get on. I'll follow you there as well. But follow her on all. Like I said, on socials, and you can follow me on at Get the Real Deal and on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think that's all. TikTok. I think that's all of them. Yeah, that's all of them. So again, thanks Kelly for doing this, and like I said, enjoy the holidays. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Courtney.
All right. Have a good one.